Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. Look, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's just dive right in. Today, we're mapping out a strategic roadmap through this seriously complex and, let's be honest, often tangled web of global regulatory submissions. Specifically, we're zooming in on Module 4 of our framework, Regulatory, CMC, and Market Impact. Now, just to be clear up front, we're completely putting aside general risk assessment, implementation, and validation for now. Our sole focus today is purely on how to assess a change's regulatory impact, how to navigate those massive global dossiers, and how to effectively communicate with health authorities. Sound good? Let's do it. So picture this scenario. You've just updated a manufacturing process. Everything looks absolutely fantastic internally. Quality has signed off, and everyone is giving each other high fives. Can you just box it up and ship the product globally tomorrow? Well, the short answer is usually a resounding hard no. In the highly regulated pharma world, a single out-of-sequence move can literally halt a massive global rollout in its tracks. Let's look at exactly how we prevent that from happening to you. Here is our quick roadmap for today. First, we'll cover regulatory instruments and categories. Second, ICH Q12 lifecycle tools. Third, global markets and dependencies. And finally, strategy and authority communication. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, regulatory instruments and categories. Okay, so the absolute most crucial point to grasp right out of the gate is that a regulatory change to a licensed product is made through very specific formal instruments. We're talking about variations in the EU and UK or supplements over in the US. These are the tools that actually legally update your marketing authorization. Because, listen, internal approval, yeah, that's never enough. You have to formally update the license. And you've got to keep pace with evolving frameworks to do this right too. For instance, you absolutely must ensure compliance with things like the amended EU Regulation 1234/2008, or the UK MHRA's updated guidance, which, by the way, now involves specific Great Britain versus Northern Ireland considerations under the Windsor Framework. It's a lot, I know, but it is critical. I like to think of regulatory categorization as a giant traffic light system. A major change, like a prior approval supplement or pass, is a bright red light. You've got to stop, file, and wait for explicit health authority approval before you even think about implementation. Now, a moderate change, like a CBE 30 notification, well, that's your yellow light. Proceed, but with caution. You notify the matter just before implementation. And finally, a minor change, that's a green light. Go ahead and implement those low-risk changes internally, and then just report them periodically in an annual report. Moving right along to Section 2, ICH Q12 Lifecycle Tools. Have you heard of established conditions, or ECs? Because they're a total game changer. Basically, they're the specific elements in a dossier that authorities consider absolutely necessary to assure product quality. So here's the rule of thumb. If you make a change within an established condition, boom, that triggers a formal regulatory action. But if you tweak elements outside of those ECs, those can actually often be managed internally under your pharmaceutical quality system without needing an immediate regulatory filing. Defining these boundaries clearly, that is the ultimate secret to regulatory efficiency. All right, let's do a quick rapid-fire knowledge check to make sure we're all on the same page here. Say you're adjusting a process, and that specific element happens to be defined as an established condition in your approved application. What exactly follows? Can you manage it internally, or do you have to call up the health authorities? And here is the definitive answer. Drumroll, please. By definition, changing an established condition requires a regulatory action. No way around it. While the exact reporting category, like whether it's a major prior approval or just a moderate notification, that depends on the specific market, but the actual need for formal regulatory action, that is an absolute, non-negotiable boundary. Now, here's a really cool strategy. You can actually use tools like the PAC-MP, the Post-Approval Change Management Protocol, totally to your advantage here. A PAC-MP basically lets you agree on the plan and the criteria for a future change up front with the authority. So if you meet those criteria later down the line, you can actively down-classify the change's reporting category. You're literally turning a red traffic light into a yellow one. Combine that with the PLCM document, which summarizes your ECs, and these act as brilliant strategic shortcuts for a highly predictable product lifecycle. Okay, let's shift gears to Section 3, Global Markets and Dependencies. Navigating global markets is honestly like solving a massive, constantly shifting puzzle. I mean, the exact same manufacturing change might be a strict prior approval in one market, but a simple notification in another. It's wild. You are constantly juggling wildly varied approval timelines, totally unique documentation rules, language barriers that require certified translations, and the exhausting reality of maintaining dozens of distinct locally adapted market dossiers. This is exactly why a rigorous market-by-market regulatory impact assessment isn't just a nice-to-have best practice, it is 100% mandatory. Let's ground all these abstract concepts with a quick hypothetical. Meet our fictional company, Orion Therapeutics. Let's say Orion wants to change a packaging site and bring on a new excipient supplier at the same time. Now, that excipient change is likely a variation everywhere, but the specific category, yeah, that's going to vary. And that packaging site change is going to cascade into this massive logistical headache involving multi-market variations, sequential approvals, and highly coordinated artwork updates. So how does Orion pull this off without causing a massive stockout or a major compliance breach? Simple. They follow a super strict 4-step strategy. Step 1, map out every single market that requires approval before implementation. Step 2, identify dependencies. Like countries that won't even look at a submission until your primary reference market approves it first. Step 3, plan that submission sequence tightly. And finally, step 4, coordinate the physical manufacturing changeover so it aligns perfectly with the absolute slowest required market approval. Remember the traffic lights? You can only move as fast as your absolute slowest required red light.
And that brings us nicely into our final stretch. Section 4, Strategy and Authority Communication.
All right, time for another high-stakes scenario to really test your risk avoidance instincts. Imagine your crucial change just got approved in your primary reference market. Awesome news, right? Pop the champagne. However, it is still pending prior approval in 2 other countries where you sell the product. Can you just go ahead and implement the change globally right now, assuming those other 2 will eventually catch up? Absolutely, positively not. You must never implement in any market ahead of that specific market's required approval. You basically have 2 choices here. You either delay the entire global manufacturing changeover until all required approvals are secured across the board, or you implement where approved, but you strictly hold and segregate the old supplies specifically for those pending markets. Failing to do this, that results in the catastrophic, entirely illegal distribution of unapproved product, and nobody wants that. You see, regulatory strategy doesn't magically end the moment you finally get that approval letter. It requires flawless downstream synchronization. Because these changes, they almost always drive artwork and labeling updates. That means you've got to carefully coordinate your print runs and your current stock rundown so you don't accidentally end up with mixed versions sitting in your warehouse. You also need to track every single implementation date you agreed upon with the authorities. And through this entire process, early, transparent communication is key, especially when it comes to learning how to distinguish binding legal requirements from just non-binding guidance during your meetings with the authorities. Well, that brings us to our final and maybe most critical thought of the day. Ask yourself honestly, are your dossiers and your manufacturing processes perfectly aligned across every single global market right now? It's a tough question, I know. But the tools we unpacked today, your variations, established conditions, PMQPs, and strict sequencing rules, they are exactly what ensure the answer to that question is a confident yes. Mastering this level of regulatory and market impact assessment is what keeps safe, compliant products flowing to the patients who desperately need them, without borders getting in the way. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today, and I really hope you leave feeling totally empowered to tackle these global changes head-on.